Sometimes the hardest part of the day is the moment you finally stop moving. David sat down on the couch. It was 6:43 in the evening. He didn't take off his shoes right away. He just sat there. The apartment was quiet. His briefcase was still in his hand. He set it down slowly, next to his feet. The cushions felt soft beneath him, too soft almost, like they might swallow him if he stayed too long. He had been a middle manager for 7 years now. 7 years of meetings that could have been emails. 7 years of problems that weren't his to solve, but somehow became his to manage. 7 years of being the person in between. Not at the top, not at the bottom, just in between. He looked at his hands. They were clean, no dirt, no calluses, just the faint impression of a pen on his middle finger. That was all he had to show for the day. That and the tiredness. It wasn't the kind of tiredness that came from running a marathon or lifting heavy boxes. It was something else. Something that lived in his chest and behind his eyes. Something that made his body feel like it was made of wet sand. He had 13 people on his team. 13 people who needed things from him. Answers, approvals, reassurance, direction. And above him, 3 people who also needed things. Results, updates, explanations, solutions. He was the bridge between them. And bridges, he had learned, don't get to rest. David leaned back and closed his eyes. The apartment was so quiet he could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. He thought about dinner. He should make dinner. But the thought of standing up again felt impossible, not difficult. Impossible. Like asking a stone to float. He had always been good at pushing through. That's what people said about him. David gets things done. David keeps it together. He wore those words like armor, but tonight the armor felt heavy. He opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. There was a small crack near the light fixture. He'd noticed it months ago, kept meaning to call someone about it. But it was still there. Some things just stayed broken. He thought about the morning, the way he had woken up already tired, not because he hadn't slept, he had slept. But sleep didn't seem to fix anything anymore. It was like trying to charge a phone with a broken cable. The plug goes in, but nothing happens. He had gone through the day on autopilot, smiled at the right times, nodded in meetings, sent emails that sounded competent and assured, but inside, he felt like he was running on fumes. No, not even fumes. On the memory of fumes. At lunch, Karen from accounting had asked him if he was okay. He'd said yes, of course, smiled. Made a joke about Mondays, even though it was Thursday. She'd laughed and walked away. And he'd felt relieved, because the truth was too complicated, too heavy to hand to someone in a break room over reheated pasta. The truth was that he didn't know if he was okay. He didn't know what okay was supposed to feel like anymore. Was it normal to wake up tired, to spend the whole day waiting for it to be over, to sit on the couch at night and feel nothing but relief that no one needed anything from him for a few hours? He didn't know, and he was too tired to figure it out. David reached for his phone. 17 unread messages, 3 missed calls. He turned the screen off and set it face down on the coffee table. Not tonight. Tonight, he just wanted to sit here in the quiet, in the stillness, even if stillness felt uncomfortable, even if it made the tiredness more obvious. He thought about his father. His father had worked in a factory for 32 years. came home every night with grease on his hands and dust in his lungs, never complained, never sat down until dinner was ready and the news was on. David used to think that was strength. Maybe it was. Or maybe his father had been tired too. Maybe everyone was just tired all the way down. He rubbed his eyes. They felt gritty, like he'd been staring at screens for too long, which he had. His whole job was screens now, emails and spreadsheets and video calls. Sometimes he missed the days when work was something you could touch, something you could point to at the end of the day and say, I built that. Now he managed things, optimized things, facilitated things, but he never built anything. And at the end of the day, he had nothing to show for it except the tiredness, that deep, bone level tiredness that no amount of coffee could touch. He sat there for a long time, long enough that the light through the window shifted from pale gray to soft amber. And then something inside him gave way. Not broke, not shattered, just softened. He let his shoulders drop. He let his head rest against the back of the couch. And he let himself feel it, all of it. The tiredness that lived in his muscles, the tiredness that lived in his mind, the tiredness that had no name and no clear cause, but was there all the same. He had spent so long trying not to feel it, trying to push through it, manage it, ignore it, trying to be the person who got things done. But tonight he didn't push, he just let it be. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. The tiredness didn't go away. But it changed. It stopped feeling like failure. It stopped feeling like something he had to fix or hide or apologize for. It just became what it was, a part of him, a true part. David thought about all the times he'd told himself to keep going, to be stronger, to not give in, as if tiredness was the enemy, as if rest was something you had to earn. But sitting here now, in the amber light of his quiet apartment, he realized something. He was allowed to be tired. He didn't have to justify it, didn't have to prove he'd worked hard enough to deserve it. He could just be tired. And that could be enough. A small sound escaped his throat. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh, just a release. He felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been clenched tight for months, maybe years. He thought about tomorrow, the meetings, the emails, the people who would need things from him. It would all be there, waiting. But maybe he could meet it differently. Maybe he didn't have to carry it all like he had been. Maybe he could let himself rest without calling it weakness. Maybe rest was just rest, and maybe that was okay. David sat on the couch until the light faded completely. He didn't make dinner. He didn't check his phone. He just sat there, breathing quietly, feeling the weight of the day settle around him like a blanket. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't fight it. When he finally stood up, it was slow. His knees cracked. His back was stiff. But he felt lighter somehow. Not fixed, not healed, just less heavy. He walked to the window and looked out at the street below. A few cars passed. A dog walker. Someone getting takeout from the restaurant on the corner. Life, continuing, the same as it always did. He thought about the crack in the ceiling. Maybe he'd call someone about it this weekend. Or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe some things could just stay as they were for a while. David turned away from the window. He would sleep soon. And tomorrow he would wake up, probably still tired, but maybe that was okay. Maybe tiredness wasn't something to be ashamed of. Maybe it was just the body's way of saying, you've been carrying a lot. And maybe the kindest thing he could do was listen. He looked at the couch one more time. The indent where he'd been sitting was still visible in the cushions, proof that he'd been there, that he'd stopped, that he'd rested, even if just for a little while. He allowed himself a small smile, and then he turned off the lights, one by one, and let the tiredness carry him toward sleep. This is an original quiet story created for this space. You're welcome to subscribe. A gentle like is always appreciated.